Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Workout Wednesday session. My name is Derek Leininger in collaboration with Coach Clyde Hart, the greatest 400-meter coach of all time. We're going to talk about a workout today called the Hare and the Hound. This is a workout for 400-meter runners that is specifically ready to prepare them for the 4x400-meter relay. So in a 4x4, what's the worst thing that can happen? And maybe you've seen this before, maybe this has happened to your team. So something goes wrong, your leadoff runner does not have a great leg, maybe your second runner doesn't look great, and either your second, third, fourth runner, they get the baton and they're down by a couple seconds. What they instinctively do, and particularly at the high school level, is they panic and they sprint all out for 15, 20 seconds trying to make up that 2 second gap. And somewhere on the backstretch, they catch up. Sometimes they pass the runner, sometimes they don't. That doesn't really matter. The problem is, we've talked about the 40-second wall before. The problem is they have just rushed. They've sped up the entire process of lactate buildup, and they are going to hit it hard on the home stretch. They end up this. I've seen this time and time again. They start 2 seconds down. Around the 200-meter mark, they've caught up. When they get to the home stretch, they are absolutely toast. The other runner feels stronger because they didn't have to go out as fast as your runner did. And now a 2 second gap, which got closed, now opens back up to a 3 or 4 second gap on the home stretch. I see this most often with non 400-meter runners, like maybe a hurdler or a half miler or a 200 sprinter that's run up on your 4x4, and somehow they think that they're able to fool Mother Nature on a particular day, and it just doesn't work. So we have a workout that specifically teaches athletes to avoid this scenario. So what you want to teach your athletes in a 4x4 is patience. Just as you do in an open 400, you don't win the race in the first curve. You win the race in the home stretch, and you spend most of your race setting up your final stretch. So the workout that we have today is called the Hare and the Hound. This is the base part of the workout is 4x300 with 5 minutes rest. In order to do this, you have athletes partner up. So find your athletes with similar ability levels. One is runner A, one is runner B. Runner A is going to be the Hare on sets 1 and 3, and then they're going to be the Hound on 2 and 4. And then flip, runner B is going to be the Hound on 1 and 3, and they're going to be the Hare on 2 and 4. So for each rep, for each set, one of them is the Hare, one of them is the Hound. So you're going to start at the 300-meter mark, or the 300 hurdle mark, first 4x1 exchange zone. So 300 meters out from the finish line, you'll finish at the start finish line. So the way the workout sets up is the Hare takes off, and you give them a specific goal time, and they're supposed to run it as even pace as possible. So if you have a boy and you say, I want you to run 42 seconds, then they're supposed to hit 14 at the 100, 28 at the 2, 42 at the 300. The only thing they are worried about is hitting their splits. They are not at all worried about the runner behind them. Then what you do is you set up a cone on the track at about 15 meters into the rep, and once the Hare passes that cone, which will be roughly 2 seconds, then the Hound takes off. And remember, they're partnered up. So the Hound has a goal that's going to be 2 seconds faster. So in this case, we're going to say 40 seconds. So you want them to get out at 13, come through 200 at 26, and finish at 40. The Hound is the key to this workout. They are the ones basically practicing this 4x4 skill. As I said before, the Hare runs their pace, not another care in the world. If they're supposed to hit 42 at even splits, that's all they're worried about. The Hound is setting up to gradually catch the Hare. And so the Hound is going to have to end up running 2 seconds faster, which is why you set up similar ability levels and go back and forth, because you want them to be the Hare twice and the Hound twice. The goal is for the Hound to catch the Hare somewhere by or on the home stretch. So you want them to, this 2 second gap that they're catching up, you want them to stretch that out at least 200 meters. You say you cannot catch them before you hit the home stretch. So the Hound can't catch them 100 meters into this. The whole thing is ruined. You're practicing the panic scenario we talked about at the beginning. Once you catch up, once the Hound catches up to the Hare, then they just run side by side and they finish together through the line, and you got times on both of them, the hound should be 2 seconds faster than the hare because they had to make up that 2-second difference. This is the exact scenario for the 4x4. If a runner comes and gets a baton and they're 2 seconds down, you are practicing with them. You're not going to make that up by sprinting all out for 15 seconds. You're going to make that up by gradually catching the runner in no less than 200, probably more like 300 meters. And then that way, when you get to the home stretch, you're not toast, you're not gassed, don't have all this, blood lactate just rushing through your muscles, that you're actually ready to sprint down the home stretch and you have a chance to get your team back into the race. So a good question would be, what if I have an outlier? What if I have an individual who is just so much better than everybody else? I have an easy solution for you. So take your top 2 runners besides the outlier. So if you have just an absolute stud, and then take your next 2, pair them up, and then add your outlier, add your really fast runners to make that a trio. And I'll explain more here in a second. You're going to adjust the starting marks to whatever makes sense for your athletes. You might have an outlier that's quite a bit faster than your number 2 and 3 runners. But here would be an example of what you could do. So let's say you have a 58-second girl and your next 2 best runners are 62-63. Okay? You will set up the 62-63 runners. There'll be runners B and C, and they're going to run Hare and Hound just the way I explained it. The normal setup, because they're pretty close to each other. You'll set up their splits, everything just how I explained it. Then what you're going to do is you're going to set up runner A, which will be your fastest runner, and they're going to be the hound on all 4 sets. So basically you'll have the hare start, and then 2 seconds later you'll have the hound start, and then 2 seconds later then your fastest runner will start. So if they're going to be the hound all 4 times, runner A, which is your fastest runner, they'll start 15 minutes behind the hound, so they're going to end up being about 30 meters behind the hare. And then apply the same rules of catching up. They should catch up to the hound by 200 and the hare by 200. So they're going to be catching up 2 seconds on runner B and 4 seconds on runner C. So you want them, basically you're adding, instead of the hare going and then the hound going, you have the hare go, the hound go, and then another 15 meters back, then your outlier, your stud runner goes last. So when to implement this workout, I like doing it a few times in the season. I don't feel like you need to do it more than a few times. I usually would say late indoor season, early outdoor season, mid outdoor season. So maybe mid-March, early April, late April. The big thing is you want to emphasize to the athletes, this is not only a physical workout, but it's also a mental workout. We are practicing how we want to race in this specific workout. And so there is a way to prepare and to avoid that panic scenario that we talked about a few minutes ago. And it's really teaching your athletes how to do it in practice so that when they get to the race and they get the baton and they're down by 2 seconds, they don't try to make it all up in the first 100 meters and end up, being completely worthless on the home stretch. One more thought since we're on the topic of 4x4, this is just something I used to, as a coach, I used to think about. If I knew we were up against a team that was slightly better, I would try not to go up against them head to head. And what I mean is I don't want to put my fastest versus their fastest and my second versus their second and my slowest versus their slowest. If they're better than us and we go head to head against them, we're probably going to lose. And I use I'm a recovering history teacher. I use the analogy of the U.S. Continental Army versus the British regulars in the Revolutionary War. If the Americans would have tried to fight that war straight up on the terms of the British Army, we would have lost. So instead, obviously, we use all sorts of other tactics that were more suited to our advantages. So here's my thought on the 4x4. If you have a team that's slightly better than you, try to make them race on your terms. Don't just go head to head. Try to mix it up. And here's a thought to consider. If you put your fastest runner at the number 2 spot, and then you try to open up a lead, what you're going to do is you're going to put them in kind of a panic scenario when they get the baton as their number 3 runner. So their number 3 runner gets the baton, they're 2 seconds behind you. The exact scenario I talked about at the beginning of this video, where they would go out way too hard and then they die way too hard on the home stretch, and now your 2-second lead becomes a 4-second lead. And if you do that, you just might be able to steal the race, even though the other team is slightly better. because you force them to run a race that they're not familiar with or comfortable with. They think they're going to come in and just dominate this race because after all, you and them both know that they're faster. But in this scenario, you're able to put them on your terms, and you just might be able to steal a race. My disclaimer for that is if a team is significantly better than you, there's nothing really you can do in the lineup. This is for a team that's just a little bit better. Try to mix it up and see if you can't steal the show from them. Okay, that's all for this video. I'll put all of our materials on 400wall.com. Obviously, you can buy our book online. Coach Hart and I wrote a book taking his model of coaching 400-meter runners and applying it to high school athletes. You can buy that on Amazon.com. Thank you all.